Well, as states like California and Illinois see continued weak population trends with tens of thousands of people a year moving to other states, many are choosing to relocate to states like Florida. While the sunshine is definitely an attractive amenity, the state not having income tax and a vibrant economy is also big pluses. Could Florida voters be giving another reason why people could flock to the state and grow that state even further? Well, welcome back to the States. I'm Greg Bishop, joining us to discuss a new tool for Florida voters being released today, Friday, to better understand the proposed amendment to Florida's Constitution concerning the property tax. We're joined by Kurt Wenner. He is with Florida Tax Watch, the senior vice president. Kurt, thanks for taking time with us here on the States. Florida Tax Watch releasing the Florida Property Tax Resource Center. Tell us about it.
Yes, we are going to have a website that is going to help provide information to voters so they can make an informed decision. We will have, frequently asked questions and explain what the amendment is. We have a lot of data about what the impact is for counties, for the various levels of government. And it'll just be a place where you can go. You can also leave questions if you have other questions that we will answer. So it's just a place where they can go to get more information about this real important amendment. Because
and tell us about it, because, there's been a lot of conversation about local property taxes all across the country. You've got states like New Jersey and Illinois and New York and California where property tax burdens continue to grow. What would it look like if indeed this amendment passes in the state of Florida?
Well, really the key to it would be what happens after it passes, because, what it does is it increases the homestead exemption considerably to $150,000 in 2027 and then $250,000 in 2028. And it's only on non-school property taxes, so it's not going to affect school revenues. But it's a big cut. It's in 5 years, it's supposed to grow to about $12 billion a year. That's a pretty big hit. But there's nothing in there that mandates that local governments don't increase their millage rate or other taxes or fees. So, we'll see some attempts to replace that revenue. So it's going to be over the long term to see exactly what it means. But initially, it's going to be a nice savings for taxpayers, and it's going to be a big hit on local governments.
And that, of course, is going to be dictated by local voters, right? Whether or not the local government goes and wants to try to replace that revenue that's taken from the taxpayer and put into the government coffers with a different tax line, that's going to be up to voters.
Well, yeah, some of it will be, like if they try to do a local option sales tax or gas tax. Most of those have to be voted, not all of them. But also, they can increase the millage rate, which they can do without voter approval. Voters can decide if they want to keep the same people in next time, but it's not a vote on whether or not they can increase the amendment. They do that every year. There's also fees for things that you use. So, even things like, parks and little leagues, they can start charging that. But also, there's special assessments that are not ad valorem taxes. So there's nothing that would prohibit them from also putting in more special assessments, for things like fire service or lighting or water, things like that.
Kurt, how popular is this proposed amendment? Has there been some polling done in Florida to show where this lands at this point?
I think it's very close. We're going to have some polling data in the future, but I think it's close. I'm not sure if people totally understand it yet, but we'll see. I think it's going to be close. I think it might be a difficult passage, but, it could. So we'll see.
Well, maybe launching Friday, you've got the Florida Property Tax Resource Center there with Florida Tax Watch that may be able to plug in some of those unknowns for voters out there as they get ready to take to the polls in November to vote on that proposed amendment. Pretty fascinating. We'll be watching that closely. But keeping with information Florida taxpayers need to know about their state government operations, let's talk about Florida Tax Watch's guide to states spending. The 2026 legislative approval of the budget, what that means. Is it less money than they've spent in the past? What's going on here?
That's a very good question. We do this budget guide every year. This year, the final budget, we do it, the General Appropriations Act, which is the number most people hear when they're talking about the budget. But there's also appropriations and bills, and some in the back of the bill, which are for this year that aren't included in the total. We include that, then we net out the governor's vetoes to have a final budget number. And this year it was $113.8 billion. That's about $1 billion less than what they did last year. However, the legislature continues to put appropriations in what you call the back of the bill, and they list them for the previous fiscal year. That is not counted in budget totals, and I think it underestimates exactly how much the legislature is appropriating. The governor had mentioned that in his veto. He called it a $117 billion budget. And, he's right. We found $4.5 billion there in the back of the bill that they put in for the fiscal year, which ended the day after they signed the budget this year. So, there was $1.8 billion in transportation money that they put back there. They moved it from the DOT work program for this upcoming year to the previous year, even though it was 1 day away from being the new fiscal year. So that continues to happen, and we would like to see them, be a little more transparent in these appropriations that are in the back of the bill, because people don't really even see them.
No, and I imagine that whenever they're reporting out the numbers as the budget's being debated, and then when you see the budget at the tail end of it and it's giving money to the previous fiscal year, you can definitely kind of scratch your head a bit and wonder just exactly how much of my tax dollars is the state of Florida spending. Kurt, something else, too, that's in this report is Turkey Watch. Tell us about Budget Turkey Watch from the Florida Tax Watch.
This is another thing we do every year when the budget comes out. We look through the budget for appropriations that didn't get the proper review, were put in at the very last minute, or that circumvented established processes that the legislature created themselves for how to select certain projects. And if they fund something that didn't go through that at the expense of things that did, we will call those budget turkeys as well. And most of the budget turkeys are what they call member projects, or legislature calls them appropriations projects. These are requests from individual members to fund something, usually in their hometown or in their district. It's the amount of member projects has skyrocketed over the last few years, and this year there's about $2 billion worth in there. And so we highlighted most of those. And calling something a budget turkey doesn't necessarily mean it's a terrible project. It's a question about whether it followed the appropriation rules that the legislature set, and that if it's something that the state should be funding and not something that maybe local government should pick up.
Yeah, Florida Tax Watch, Budget Turkey Watch reporting that there's 631 appropriations, at least what you guys have identified, about $830 million in total budget turkeys. But you note that there were a bunch of vetoes, about 342 projects that were vetoed.
Exactly, worth about $230 million. So the governor did get in and veto a lot of his vetoes that actually reduced the budget were about $660 million. And so of that were the 342 projects you mentioned worth $230 million. So he did get some of them.
So definitely, if you are interested in what's going on in the state of Florida with the proposed property tax amendment or with the state spending, be sure to check out Florida Tax Watch. Kurt Wenner, Florida Tax Watch Senior Vice President, greatly appreciate you being back here on the States, and we hope to talk with you again soon. We'll be right back.